A minor delay at check-in or a missed room request can turn a routine interaction into a high-stress confrontation in seconds. When guests express their frustration, their behavior is driven by immediate, in-the-moment feelings. They are interacting based on how they feel, and those feelings quickly override logical problem-solving. This diagram outlines a four-step framework to navigate these intense interactions: detect, diagnose, assess, and adapt. Applying these four steps gives you a systematic way to acknowledge the guest's feelings early on. Doing so stops a complaint from escalating and restores their trust before they walk away permanently. Acknowledging and managing those emotions acts as the primary mechanism for successful service recovery and secures long-term loyalty. Step 1 is to detect. This requires actively observing your guests to spot the first signs of frustration. The most obvious markers of anger are physical. You will often see clenched fists, raised arms, and an overall tension across the guest's body posture, usually accompanied by a raised voice. Not every guest shouts. Subtle cues like a frown, a sudden lack of eye contact, or a clipped tone of voice signal discontent. Catching these early allows you to intervene before a quiet irritation turns into rage. You also need to track how a guest's behavior changes over time. A guest who starts out calm might slowly become more exasperated as they wait or repeat their request. This trigger matrix maps how standard service failures cause these emotional reactions. You can see how unacknowledged wait times directly trigger impatience, while broken promises and miscommunications lead directly to frustration. Now look at how the flow splits. A rational complaint, like a billing mistake, routes to the left. You address it by applying reason and fixing the policy error. An emotional complaint, rooted in disappointed expectations, routes to the right and requires empathy and reassurance. Notice what happens when you introduce defensive language. Telling a mildly irritated guest, "That is not our fault," instantly spikes their emotional state into full anger. Step 2. Diagnosing the actual root of the complaint tells you which path to take. You cannot fix a shattered expectation with a policy explanation. You have to deploy empathy first. Step 3 is to assess. When a guest's frustration turns aggressive, your immediate priority is evaluating safety risks. Most complaints are harmless, but you need to watch for specific indicators of hazardous conduct. These include a violent tone of voice, intimidating gestures, or sudden erratic physical movements. This chart outlines the strict protocol if you spot those behaviors. First, provide the guest with personal space. Next, request assistance from colleagues. If the behavior continues, contact your supervisor or security. Before you can resolve the guest's issue, you have to compose yourself. Reacting to anger with your own annoyance damages your authority and makes the situation harder to control. Maintaining neutrality and avoiding defensiveness protects your professional standing. It keeps your mind clear so you can apply conflict resolution techniques rather than arguing. Step 4 is to adapt. When facing a hostile guest, you must provide a steady, calm, and empathetic response. Lowering your voice can prevent the tension from rising further. This panel shows how to calibrate your communication. An angry guest requires a slow, steady rhythm. A disappointed guest needs a warm response that recognizes their value. If a guest is confused, the interaction requires sharp, concise explanations to guide them through the process. Using open body language and validating statements, like saying, "I understand that must have been frustrating," clearly communicates receptivity to the guest. Dynamically matching your speed, tone, and language to the guest's specific emotional state proves that you hear them, which neutralizes the conflict. By detecting the initial cues, diagnosing the triggers, assessing the safety risks, and adapting your communication, you establish a reliable path through any service recovery scenario. Treating the emotional need first shows respect. It takes a negative interaction and uses it to rebuild trust with the guest. When staff can de-escalate a confrontation in the lobby, it prevents a single incident from disrupting other guests or requiring a supervisor to stop their tasks to intervene. This direct reduction in conflict is what protects your team's safety and keeps the daily operation running without interruption. This approach shifts the focus from merely checking boxes to addressing the underlying human need. By prioritizing an emotionally aware response over a standard procedural fix, you turn a potential service failure into a demonstration of respect that guests remember long after they leave. Understanding and managing guest emotions takes the most difficult interactions in this industry and turns them into your strongest method for building lasting guest relationships.